The night shift at Deep Space Monitor Station Kepler-7 was usually quiet. Officer Lee sat at his desk, watching the endless stream of data from distant stars. Coffee had gone cold hours ago, and he was thinking about his next break when something strange appeared on his screen. A weak signal, barely visible among the cosmic background noise. Lee leaned forward, adjusting the filters. The transmission was breaking up badly, but there was definitely a pattern. Someone was trying to communicate. "What the hell?" Lee muttered, boosting the signal strength. The universal translator kicked in, converting alien sounds into human speech. "Anyone out there, please respond. We are the last... Our home is gone. Ship is dying... Children, aboard... Please." Lee's blood ran cold. He'd heard distress calls before, but this one was different. There was pure desperation in those alien voices, a hopelessness that made his chest tight. "Captain Park to the bridge, emergency," Lee announced over the intercom. Within minutes, Captain Park arrived, still buttoning his uniform jacket. "What do we have, Lee?" "Long-range distress signals, sir." "Take a listen." The message played again, clearer now that Lee had cleaned up the interference. The alien voices spoke of their homeworld being consumed by radiation, their people dying, their ancient ship failing in the depths of space. Captain Park studied the coordinates flashing on the screen. "The Crimson Nebula. Are they insane? That place is a death trap." The Crimson Nebula was famous throughout this sector of space. Radiation storms that could cook a ship's crew in minutes. Magnetic fields that scrambled navigation systems. Number 1 went there voluntarily. "Sir, they say they have families aboard. Children." Park ran his hand through his gray hair. He'd been in space for 30 years, and had never encountered anything like this. The aliens called themselves the Villani. Their message explained how their sun had gone unstable, filling their star system with deadly radiation. They'd escaped in an ancient bioship, but now that ship was dying too. "How many survivors?" Park asked. Lee checked the readings. "Hard to say exactly, but the ship's signature suggests tens of thousands, sir." The captain stared at the holographic display showing the nebula swirling red clouds. Every instinct told him this was suicide. The radiation alone would kill any rescue crew long before they reached the alien ship. But those voices kept echoing in his mind. The fear, the hope, the quiet acceptance that they might die alone in the dark. "Send this to Earth Command immediately," Park ordered. "Full priority transmission." "Sir, shouldn't we wait for confirmation? The Galactic Council usually handles first contact situations." Park shook his head. "The Council will debate this for weeks. These people don't have weeks. They might not have days." As Lee transmitted the message to Earth, Captain Park continued staring at the nebula. Somewhere in that deadly storm, an entire species was waiting to die. The question was, would humanity let that happen? Within hours, the distress call was racing through subspace toward Earth. But even at faster than light speeds, the message would take time to reach human command, time the Villani might not have. The distress call from the Villani reached Earth Command at 0400 hours. By 0430, every senior officer was awake and reviewing the data. By 0500, Admiral Kim was standing in the main briefing room, staring at a holographic map of the Crimson Nebula. "How long do they have?" she asked her science advisor. "Based on their ship's bio readings, maybe 3 days. Their life support systems are organic, and they're dying from radiation poisoning." Meanwhile, halfway across the galaxy, the Galactic Council was having a very different conversation. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their grand chamber, debating procedures and protocols. "We must consider the risks," declared the Zentari ambassador. "The Crimson Nebula has claimed 17 ships in the past century." "Indeed," agreed the Korathi delegate. "We should form a committee to study possible rescue strategies. Perhaps in 6 to 8 months, we could develop a viable plan." The Villani would be dead in 3 days. Back on Earth, Admiral Kim wasn't interested in committees. She walked into the crew briefing room of the starship Indomitable, where Captain Yoon and his officers were waiting. "People, we have a situation," Kim began, activating the holographic display. 47,000 aliens are trapped in the Crimson Nebula. Their ship is dying, and so are they. Commander Han, the ship's tactical officer, studied the radiation readings. "Admiral, those levels would kill our crew in hours, even with full shielding." "I know the risks, Commander. That's why this mission is completely voluntary. Anyone who wants to transfer off this ship can do so, no questions asked." The room fell silent. Captain Yoon looked around at his crew. These were good people, experienced officers who'd seen combat and survived. They knew what the nebula could do to them. Commander Han was the first to speak. "With all due respect, Admiral, when has certain death ever stopped us before? We didn't. Join Starfleet to play it safe." One by one, every officer in the room volunteered for the mission. Not because they were ordered to, but because it was the right thing to do. Within hours, word spread through human space. The Indomitable wouldn't be going alone. Captain Lee's destroyer, Fearless, requested permission to join the rescue fleet. So did Captain Moon's science vessel Discovery and Commander Jin's heavy cruiser Defiant, by launch time. 12 human ships had volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. As the fleet departed Earth, alien intelligence services intercepted their communications. The reports they sent back to their governments were filled with confusion and disbelief. "The humans are actually doing this," reported a Centauri spy. "They're flying directly into the nebula with no guarantee of survival." "Fascinating," replied his superior. "Do they have some new technology we don't know about?" "No, sir. They're using standard ships with standard shielding. They're just going anyway." The galaxy watched in amazement as the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading straight for the deadliest region of known space. Most alien species expected to witness humanity's first major failure as a spacefaring civilization. They had no idea they were about to witness something far more significant. The moment the human fleet entered the Crimson Nebula, everything went wrong. Captain Yoon felt the Indomitable shudder as the first wave of radiation hit their shields. Red warning lights flashed across the bridge, and the ship's computer began announcing damage reports in its calm, mechanical voice. "Radiation levels at 4 times normal parameters and rising," called out Science Officer Bay, sweat beading on his forehead despite the ship's climate control. "At this rate, we'll start seeing crew casualties within the hour." Through the main view screen, the nebula looked like a vision of hell. Crimson clouds swirled in impossible patterns, crackling with energy discharges that could vaporize a small asteroid. Lightning storms the size of planets danced between gas clouds, creating a light show that was both beautiful and terrifying. "Sir, we're getting distress calls from the escort ships," reported Communications Officer Lim. "The Centauri observers are requesting immediate withdrawal to safe distance." Yoon wasn't surprised. 2 alien ships had followed them into the nebula, supposedly to witness their rescue attempt. In reality, everyone knew they were there to document humanity's failure for the Galactic Council's records. "Permission granted for the escorts," Yoon replied. "This isn't their fight." The alien ships immediately turned around, their captains probably relieved to escape the deadly radiation. But the human fleet pressed deeper into the storm. "Engineering Chief," Cho's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, hull integrity is dropping fast. We're at 60% and falling. The radiation is literally eating through our armor plating. How long can we maintain structural integrity? At this rate, maybe 2 hours before we start seeing hull breaches." Dr. Song looked up from her medical scanner, her face pale. "Captain, I'm already detecting cellular damage in crew members near the outer hull sections. If we don't find those aliens soon. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone knew what radiation poisoning looked like. But Yoon had made his decision. Reroute all auxiliary power to forward shields. Shut down non-essential systems. If you have to, we're not turning back. The other ships in the fleet received similar orders from their captains. The destroyer, Fearless, reported shield failures on 2 decks. The science vessel Discovery had lost its main sensor array. The cruiser Defiant was venting atmosphere from a small hull breach. Still, they continued forward. Then, through the swirling chaos of the nebula, they saw it. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, announced Tactical Officer Han. It's massive. The Vellani ship appeared on their screens like something from a dream. It wasn't built like human vessels, all metal plates and angular designs. This ship was grown, not constructed. Its hull curved and flowed like living tissue, pulsing with a faint bioluminescent glow. My God, whispered Science Officer Bay. It's beautiful. But even as they watched, they could see the ship was dying. Sections of its organic hull had turned black and brittle. The gentle pulsing that marked its heartbeat was growing weaker and more irregular. Life signs, Yoon asked. Faint, but present. Thousands of them, maybe tens of thousands. The human fleet had found their target. Now came the hard part, keeping everyone alive long enough to mount a rescue. The first attempt at communication with the Vellani ship was a disaster. Unknown vessels, stay away. The alien voices that came through the universal translator were filled with pure terror. We have nothing left to take. Our children are already dying. Captain Yoon exchanged confused glances with her bridge crew. This wasn't the response they'd expected from people who had sent out a distress call. Communications Officer Lim was monitoring multiple alien frequencies at once, his headphones crackling with overlapping voices. Captain, they're not talking to us directly. It's like they're having dozens of conversations at the same time. Some voices are saying to trust us. Others are screaming about something called the Devourers. The Devourers? Asked Commander Han. Lim nodded grimly. From what I can piece together, they're some kind of violent species that wiped out several colonies in the Vellani home sector. The survivors think we might be working with them. Dr. Song pulled up what little information they had about Vellani biology on her medical scanner. Captain, their brain patterns suggest they're a collective species. They share thoughts and emotions across their entire population. But look at these readings, their mental network is breaking down as individuals die. That explained the chaos in their communications. The Vellani weren't just losing people. They were losing pieces of their collective mind. Captain Yoon made a decision. She stepped in front of the main view screen, making sure her face was clearly visible to the alien ship. This is Captain Yoon of the human starship Indomitable, she said slowly and clearly. We received your distress signal. We are here to help you. The response was immediate and panicked. Humans, we do not know this species. You travel with the metal ships of war. You come to finish what the Devourers started. No, Yoon said firmly. We are not here to harm you. We came because you called for help. There was a long pause. When the Vellani voices returned, they sounded confused and fractured. Help, ... But why, ... You gain nothing from our deaths. We have no resources, no technology to trade. Our ship dies, ... We die. What profit is there in saving the worthless? Dr. Song stepped into view beside the captain. Her voice was gentle, but clear. We don't need a reason beyond the fact that you're in trouble. We help because it's the right thing to do. That's what humans do. The alien transmission went completely silent. For nearly a full minute, there was nothing but static. Finally, a single Vellani voice came through, weaker than the others. This concept, helping without gain, it does not translate properly. Your words break our understanding machines. Commander. Han leaned forward, They literally can't understand why we'd risk our lives for strangers. Their entire species operates on mutual benefit, Dr. Song realized. The idea of pure altruism is alien to them. They think there has to be a hidden motive. Another voice joined the transmission, this one sounding elderly and tired. If you speak truth, if you truly come to help without payment, then perhaps. The stories of mercy in the galaxy are not just myths our children told themselves. Captain Yoon smiled, even though she knew the gesture wouldn't translate through their equipment. They're not myths. Sometimes, help comes just because someone cares enough to try. The silence that followed was different this time, not confused or terrified, but wondering. Chief Engineer Nam looked exhausted when he returned from the Villani bioship. His environmental suit was still dripping with condensation, and his face was pale behind the helmet's visor. He'd spent 6 hours aboard the alien vessel, crawling through dying corridors to assess the damage. "Give it to me straight, Nam," Captain Yoon said as soon as he stepped onto the bridge. Nam pulled off his helmet and ran a hand through his sweat-soaked hair. "Captain, that ship is more dead than alive. The organic systems that keep it running are shutting down one by one. I've never seen anything like it. The walls are literally rotting from the inside out." He activated the holographic display, showing cross-sections of the Villani vessel. Dark patches spread through the ship like cancer, marking dead zones where the biosystems had already failed. "How long do they have?" Yoon asked. 18 hours, maybe 20 if they start shutting down non-essential sections. "But Captain, ... Nam's voice grew quiet. "There are 47,000 of them still alive in there. Men, women, children who look like they're barely old enough to walk, and elderly ones who can barely move." The number hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. Dr. Song gasped audibly. Commander Han cursed under his breath. "What's our current capacity across all ships?" Yoon asked, though she already suspected the answer. 12,000 people, absolute maximum, Nam replied. "That's if we convert every cargo bay, every storage room, every spare inch of space we have. And even then, we'd be packed in like sardines." Science Officer Bay was running calculations on his console. "Captain, 12,000 survivors would still preserve their species. With their reproductive rates, they could rebuild their population within a few generations." Communications Officer Lim looked up from his station. "I've sent out emergency requests for additional ships, but the nearest human vessels are at least 40 hours away, even if they left immediately." He didn't need to finish. Everyone knew the math didn't work. The bridge fell into heavy silence. Outside the viewports, the Crimson Nebula continued its deadly dance, radiation storms crackling between the red clouds. Time was running out, and they all knew it. "We could save 12,000, Dr. Song said softly. "That's still 1,000 lives we'd be leaving behind, but 12,000 is better than none." Commander Han nodded reluctantly. "It's the logical choice. Save who we can." Captain Yoon stood up from her command chair and walked to the viewport. She could see the dying Villani ship in the distance, its bioluminescent glow flickering like a candle in the wind. "No," she said firmly. "Captain," Nam asked. Yoon turned back to face her crew. Her expression was determined, almost stubborn. "We didn't fly into the most dangerous region of known space just to save some of them. We didn't risk our lives and our ships to make the easy choice." She looked at each of her officers in turn. "We came here to save all of them. Every man, woman, child, and elder on that ship. And that's exactly what we're going to do." "But how?" Dr. Song asked. "The numbers don't add up." Yoon smiled grimly. "Then we'll have to make them add up. We're human. We specialize in impossible." The rescue mission was about to become something incredible. What galactic historians would later call the miracle of the Crimson Nebula was just another day for the humans who made it happen. Engineer Nam worked like a machine, coordinating changes across the entire human fleet. Every ship was being transformed. Cargo areas became places where people could breathe and live. They ripped out anything they didn't absolutely need, and used those parts to keep other systems running. Maintenance tunnels that nobody usually went into were being filled with air so people could hide there if needed. But even with all this work, it still wasn't going to be enough space for everyone. That's when something amazing happened. More ships started showing up. Not military ships, but regular people in whatever vessels they had. Captain O had pushed his mining ship harder than it was ever meant to go. Traveling for 16 straight hours to get there. His ship was built for digging through asteroids, not rescuing people, but he came anyway. Captain Essio arrived in her fancy pleasure yacht. The beautiful hallways where rich people used to party were now being fitted with emergency breathing equipment. Everything elegant about the ship was being torn apart to save lives. Even Captain Zhang showed up in his cargo hauler, called Fortune's Dream. It was just a working ship meant for moving stuff from one place to another. But now it was going to carry something much more precious. Captain Yoon tried to warn them away. Civilian ships, this is the Indomitable speaking. You're not built for this kind of danger. The radiation out here will kill you. But Captain O's voice came back through the static and interference. Captain, we respect what you're saying. But we didn't travel all this way just to turn around and go home. Don't worry about us though. We brought extra protection against the radiation. As the 12th hour passed, an incredible sight filled the deadly space around the dying alien ship. 37 human vessels of all shapes and sizes had gathered together. Military ships, mining ships, luxury yachts, and cargo haulers all working as one team. They were preparing for something that had never been attempted before. The biggest rescue operation in the history of the galaxy. Nobody knew if it would work, but they were going to try anyway. The humans had turned an impossible situation into their greatest chance to show what they could do when they worked together. The Vellani ship was still dying, but now it wasn't alone. The rescue was moving fast. But the dangerous space around them was getting worse by the minute. The unstable star nearby kept throwing out massive bursts of deadly energy, and each one was stronger than the last. Tactical Officer Han looked up from his screen with worry written all over his face. Captain, we've packed people into 93% of every ship we have, but there are still 8,000 Vellani left on the life bearer. That living ship is falling apart. It won't make it another hour. Down on the dying alien vessel, Commander Shin was coordinating the evacuation efforts. His voice crackled through the communication system as another wave of radiation hit. We can get these people out, but we need more time. The ship is breaking down faster than we can move. Everyone. Just then, the star erupted again with even more violence. Several of the civilian ships that had volunteered for this mission suddenly lost their protective shields. Alarms started blaring across multiple vessels as the deadly radiation began eating through their hulls. Captain Yoon knew she had to make an impossible choice. She couldn't let civilian ships die, but she couldn't abandon the remaining Vellani either. All civilian vessels, pull back to minimum safe distance immediately. Start moving now. The Indomitable will stay here and finish the evacuation. Dr. Song, who had been quietly monitoring the radiation levels, stepped closer to the captain. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but everyone on the bridge could hear her. Captain, at these radiation levels, once our shields fail, we won't be able to retreat. We'll be trapped here. Captain Yoon looked out at the dying alien ship, then at her crew. Then back at the readings, showing thousands of lives still waiting to be saved. She gave a small nod. Then we'd better make sure our shields don't fail. What happened next showed something incredible about humans. Across the entire fleet, not a single captain questioned the order. The civilian ships began pulling back to safety, but they didn't complain or argue. The military ship was staying behind to face almost certain death. And everyone understood why. This was what they had all come for, to save lives. It didn't matter if those lives belonged to their own species or to aliens they had never met before. A life was a life, and lives were going to be saved, no matter what it cost. The Indomitable sat alone in the deadly radiation, her shields flickering, but holding, as the final phase of the greatest rescue in galactic history began. The rescue mission worked, but the price was devastating in those final, desperate hours. As radiation levels peaked beyond anything the ships could handle, 7 human vessels couldn't escape in time. The Indomitable, along with 6 other brave ships, was consumed by the deadly energy cascades. Out of the 2,400 humans who had answered the call to help complete strangers, 891 heroes would never see their families again. Their sacrifice echoed across the galaxy in the days that followed, but their deaths were not in vain. All 47,000 Villani made it to safety. The news of what happened spread through every corner of galactic civilization like wildfire. Species that had existed for thousands of years struggled to understand what they had witnessed. The mighty Karathi Empire, famous for their perfect military strategies and cold calculations, released an official statement calling the human actions tactically sound. Coming from a species that valued efficiency above all else, this was extraordinary praise. The peaceful Zanari Federation, known for their diplomacy and careful words, issued formal commendations to the human fleet. They had never honored another species like this before. Even the Trade Consortium, who measured everything in profit and loss, admitted publicly that the humans had exceeded all logical parameters. For beings who lived by spreadsheets and calculations, this was their way of saying they couldn't believe what they'd seen. But the most remarkable change came from the Villani themselves. The entire rescued species chose to make their new home in human space, and they did something that had never happened in galactic history. An entire civilization dedicated themselves to speaking for humanity across the stars. Elder Voice Cathara, now the official representative of her people, addressed the galaxy with words that would be remembered forever. We do not understand why humans risked everything for strangers they had never met. We cannot comprehend this kind of selflessness. But we will spend every remaining generation of our existence making sure the galaxy never forgets this gift. At the memorial service for the 891 humans who died saving them, Admiral Kim stood before representatives from dozens of worlds. The entire galaxy was watching, waiting to hear what profound words humanity would offer to explain their incredible sacrifice. His response was typically human. We did what anyone should do. We helped. In that moment, the galaxy realized that humanity wasn't like any other species they had encountered. These strange beings from a small blue planet didn't save lives for glory, or politics, or gain. They did it simply because it was right, and the universe would never be the same. 6 months had passed since the Crimson Nebula rescue, and the entire galaxy was living in a different reality. What humans had done that day became known as the Yun Protocol, named after the captain who chose to stay behind. This wasn't just a military tactic. It became the new standard for how civilizations should respond to emergencies everywhere. Gone were the endless committee meetings and careful risk calculations that used to happen while people died waiting for help. The new way was simple. Act fast. Give everything you have. Save lives first, and worry about the costs later. Species that had spent centuries avoiding danger suddenly started volunteering their ships and resources for rescue missions. The example humanity set had sparked something that spread like wildfire across the stars. Captain Moon now commanded a ship called the Defiant Hope, and it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Humans and Villani worked side by side as equals, responding to emergency calls throughout their sector. Their success rate in saving lives was better than anyone had thought possible. The Galactic Council, recognizing that the old ways of doing things were over, established something completely new, the Emergency Response Division, and they put it right on Earth, the planet that had taught them what real courage looked like. Admiral Park, who had started as just a communications officer at that remote monitoring station, now coordinated massive rescue operations across 3 different arms of the galaxy. The quiet person who had first heard the Villani distress call was now saving lives on a scale that defied imagination. But the biggest change wasn't in ships or organizations. It was in how every species thought about life itself. For thousands of years, galactic civilizations had operated on cold logic. They calculated risks, measured benefits, and only helped others when it served their own interests. Humanity had introduced something revolutionary. The idea that some things were worth any risk, any cost, any sacrifice. The idea that a stranger's life was just as valuable as your own. A Villani philosopher named Xena Kara captured this transformation in her famous book, The Human Paradox. She wrote, "They showed us that true strength isn't the power to take whatever you want. Real strength is having the courage to give everything you have for others. The galaxy will never be the same, and every one of us is better because of what they taught us." In the end, one desperate cry for help across the void of space had revealed something the galaxy didn't even know it was missing. It had revealed hope, real hope, and the knowledge that no matter how dark things got, someone would always come to help. The universe had learned what it meant to be human.